It's the SNL Hall of Fame podcast with your host, Jamie Dew, Chief Librarian Thomas Senna, and featuring Matt Ardill. And now, curator of the hall, Jamie Dew.
Oh my goodness gracious me, oh my. It is my privilege to be joining you once again this week in the SNL Hall of Fame. The SNL Hall of Fame podcast is a weekly affair where each episode we take a deep dive into the career of a former cast member, host, musical guest, or writer, and add them to the ballot for your consideration. Once the nominees have been announced, we turn to you, the listener, to vote for the most deserving and help determine who will be enshrined for perpetuity in the hall. And that's how we play the game. It's just that easy. But before we get to voting, we need to discuss our nominee. And before we discuss our nominee, we need to speak with our friend Matt Ardill in his Minutia Minute Corner. What do you say we wander over there and see what old Matty is up to?
Hey, JD, how you doing?
I am parched, and I just had a enjoyable sip of water, which is cleaned up the old pipes.
Yeah, nature soda, I've heard it called.
Nature soda. I like it.
Yeah.
I heard somebody say they won't drink water because fish have sex in it.
I think that's a fair, I can understand that, but, run it through enough purifiers, it should be fine.
I mean, I'm a water fiend. I drink like 4 liters a day.
Oh, it's good for the body.
That's right. That's why I'm so easy on the eyes.
Yeah, you are ripped. You are ripped.
That's right. Speaking of ripped, this week we've got John Mulaney.
Yeah, back again. I did make the effort of finding new trivia, so it should be for longtime listeners. It should be interesting. Height 6 foot. One of the taller contestants or nominees, actually. Yeah. Born August 26th, 1982. He has 28 writing credits, 42 actor credits, 13 producer credits. I have to say, when I saw him in The Bear, blew me away. It was really intense. Did not expect that. So he's got a lot of good acting chops. He's released 5 specials, stand-up specials, and his Sack Lunch Bunch Kids special. Grew up in Chicago, child of a law professor, mother Ellen, and attorney father Charles Chip W. Mulaney. Never mess with the Chip. Anybody who's got Chip as a nickname, that's trouble. But he's descended from a lot of political go-getters. He's descended from the mayor of Salem and has congressmen on both sides of his family. So yeah, he's got a good pedigree. His maternal grandmother, Carolyn Stanton, and Seth Meyers' mother, Hillary Myers, performed together at a hospital benefit show called Pills A Poppin'. That's some foreshadowing. And it was directed by Tommy Tune when they were 19 years old. So there is some deep family connections going on there. So yeah. So he attended Georgetown University, and as most people know, with Nick Kroll, where he studied English literature. He decided he wanted to go into show business at the age of 5 after watching a lifestyle program about Ricky Ricardo, which is the most John Mulaney thing I have ever read. Like, if anybody's going to set their life goals by watching Ricky Ricardo, that would be John Mulaney. Yeah, from that point, he started doing sketches for friends and family whenever given a chance. And he was pushed actually by his high school teacher to pursue his love of comedy. He actually almost had the role, well, he almost auditioned for the role of Kevin McAllister in Home Alone, but his parents wouldn't let him. So
that is wild.
Yeah, that would have been a very interesting and different Home Alone movie. I can only imagine what 10-year-old John Mulaney would have brought to the game. So instead, he just started hanging around the Museum of Broadcasting Communications until he got to go to university. When he joined an improv group, which is where he met Kroll and Mike Birbiglia, who took him on tour during his days, and that's how he lost his stage fright. He's had his own show with Mulaney, Mulaney. He also appeared as himself on Jim Gaffigan's sitcom, where he portrayed his Jim Gaffigan's nemesis as himself. And he's taken roles in Chip and Dale, Spider-Man, cartoons of Spider-Ham, which, perfect casting, no notes. His first late night gig was writing for Conan, but he is also taken on writing roles for Seth Meyers, and has also written for the Academy Awards and the Emmys. He has had a couple of brushes with Broadway, first bringing his special Kid Gorgeous to Radio City Music Hall, and then bringing Oh Hello, the sketch from The Kroll Show, to being a Broadway show where they just had random famous people showing up. He's also released an album, The Top Part, which is just him telling anecdotes, which I need to listen to now.
Yeah.
I not know about that, but it's just him telling anecdotes and stories. Sign me up. Yeah, but his esoteric sense of humor has led him to many projects, including contributing to Seth Meyers' parody show, Documentary Now. And he is, in fact, a super fan of Law and Order.
All right, JD and Matt, thank you so much. Yes, we are here. Another episode of the SNL Hall of Fame. I'm so excited about this one. This is an interesting one. We're talking about somebody who's already been on the ballot since season 1, but in a different capacity. We're kind of reorganizing our thoughts when it comes to this person. We're reframing his Hall of Fame candidacy and his role on SNL. So I'm talking about John Mulaney, who's been on the ballot as a host in previous times. We decided, let's talk about him as a writer, because that's what, that was his starting point on SNL. So we're talking John Mulaney as a writer today on the SNL Hall of Fame. And joining me to do that, a previous guest. You may have heard her on the Amy Poehler episode that we did. You may have heard her on one of the end of season roundtables where she did such a great job expressing her opinions that we always love to hear about. And you've probably heard her on the SNN, our buddies over at the Saturday Night Network. I'm talking about Victoria Franco is joining me today to chat about John Mulaney. Victoria, how's it going?
Doing well. I'm very excited to talk about the one and only John Mulaney. I feel like we have similarities in, being from Chicago and in the comedy scene.
I can see that. And you're one of my few guests. There's a handful of guests, but you're one of my few guests who I've actually kind of been able to hang out with in person. So a lot of us in the SNL community know each other just by doing podcasts and online, but we've actually got to hang out in Chicago.
Yes.
So that was wonderful. And you're a very funny person. So I can kind of see those similarities as well.
Wow. Yes, I took Thomas to the best empanada place in Chicago.
So good.
Yeah.
It's delicious. Yeah. We had empanadas. I got a horchata, walked around Chicago. It was a good time.
Yes. I'm going to plug Cafe Tola. Always support a Latina-owned business in Chicago. So Cafe Tola is one of the best empanada places in the city of Chicago.
Yeah, it was awesome. Great recommendation. Yeah. And you're living in Chicago right now. You're living the sketch comedy dream. Like, what have you been up to over the last few months or so?
Oh man, so I moved back to Chicago last year from Detroit. I'm back at the Second City. I finished the conservatory / grad review program, which was really awesome. And now I'm getting ready for my own SNL showcase because I am an SNL scholar at the Second City, which just means that Saturday Night Live pays for my classes and training there. And at the end of it, we get to put together a showcase that is SNL-like in that it's sketches and solo pieces. And yeah, that's open to the public. So if you're around, feel free to come. I'm also just doing some writing and performing on the side too.
Yeah, if you're in Chicago, that sounds like an awesome deal. Go support Victoria and go support these SNL scholars and what they're doing over there at Second City in Chicago. It's such a cool thing. If I lived closer, I would have already attended. I think I missed it by a week as well when I was up there last.
Yeah, you should just, I don't know, rearrange your whole life and come
No
down to
excuse.
Chicago.
No excuse, is she saying?
Yes.
Okay.
We have, I mean, the SNL scholars, there are 4 of us. One of them quite literally flew across the world to be here from Austria. So it's a nice blend of folks that we've got in the cast.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear how it goes, and if anybody's in the area, please go check it out. Go check out Victoria there at Second City. Somebody who probably is an influence to a lot of Second City folks, I'm sure you included, is our topic today, John Mulaney. He's a stand-up by trade. He auditioned to be a cast member for SNL. He auditioned at the same time as Nick Kroll, Donald Glover, Ellie Kemper, Bobby Moynihan, who obviously ended up getting it. Mulaney did not get the cast member job, but he ended up being offered a writing job, which he immediately accepted. So he was a writer from 2009 to 2012. So going from auditioning to be a cast member to getting a writing job, that's not a bad deal, Victoria. I would certainly take that. I don't know about you.
I would. I would take a janitor job at SNL, to be honest with you.
Yeah. If they offered me the janitor job, if they offered me whatever, page, I always wanted to be, I should have started young and tried to be a page.
I know. Even then, though, it's so hard. You know, it's easier if you're in New York City and had connections to NBC to be a page.
Yeah. And I think NBC and SNL made the right choice. Mulaney probably would have been a pretty decent cast member. He would have added his own flair, but we got the chance to really enjoy his writing stuff and his work as a writer. So I wanted to talk about his stand-up, Victoria. Are you a fan of Mulaney's stand-up?
I am. So to be completely honest, it's going to shock some people here. I didn't really know about John Mulaney up until 2019. I had no idea. 2018, 2019, I had no idea who he was, and I've always been an SNL fan. I never went deep, though, into learning who the writers were or whatnot, but a friend of mine told me, there's this guy, he just released a special on Netflix. He's so up your alley. And I go, what's his name? She goes, you don't know who that is? It's an SNL writer, John Mulaney. And I go, I have no idea who that is. And watched his stand-up, and I don't want to say fell in love because that's inappropriate, but I did come to love his comedy very much. I'm a little
bit in love with Mulaney and his comedy, so you could say fell in love. I think that's somewhat appropriate.
I just don't, he's got a partner. I don't want to be disrespectful.
He's a dad now. It's a little, he's all sorts of murky.
Yeah, he's a full papa now. So
yeah, so you fell in love with the stand-up material. What was it like? What was it about the material that really grabbed you?
I loved that he was weird, or not weird, but he could find the weird in everyday things and make it funny. And not only that, not to say he's a clean comedian by chance, but he's smart about his comedy, if that makes sense. He's smart and strategic versus, going blue, as we say in comedy, to lean on as a crutch, which was really refreshing. I think his stand-ups changed a little bit, and that's totally fair. And as it should, as you grow and change, so should your content. I didn't expect it to stay the same, but even now with Baby J, after everything that's happened the last couple of years, is still really funny to me. Yeah. And I love that he's kind of poked fun at his likability. And I think that's what it is. He's likable even in this, in this new chapter of his life.
Yeah, I think he has this specific relatability, if that makes sense. That's what I pointed out. Like he says, he focuses on hyper-specific things, I think, his specific observations, but he makes them relatable, whether it's I know that concept that he's talking about, or I've also observed that specific thing. I think Mulaney's always been so good at that. I think it does show up in his sketch work as well. You brought up a really good point too with Working Blue and his choice to, I mean, he's not a clean comic. I mean, he does curse, but it's for effect. If he curses, it's for a reason. And he's not just using the F word as some sort of verbal pause like a lot of comedians do. It's Mulaney's very strategic about it. And he's very strategic about his comedy in general, Victoria. That's what I love about a lot of his stand-up is I feel like one of my really funny friends is talking to me and telling me a story. So he makes it conversational, but you can tell and appreciate the craft that went into it at the same time. It's a really neat, delicate balance that Mulaney strikes, I think.
Yeah, and, you know, male comics, not all, of course, I'm not going to generalize them, but some of them, and quite a few of them, tend to play the D-bag role in their stand-up, right? And that can be funny at times, and, you know, I'm not opposed to it. I'll watch any type of comedy. You know, I'll never say no, unless they're incredibly problematic and are outwardly horrible. But that's what differentiated him. He wasn't playing a bro. He wasn't, you know, womanizing. He wasn't, you know, he never really punches down in his comedy, which is something I think is admirable too, in a takeaway.
Yeah, a lot of times he punches at himself. He like punches inward, and especially
he
Baby
punches
J.
laterally.
Yeah, he punches laterally like a T-Rex. Like I think you should have seen Victoria on camera. She was punching, and it looked like she was like a T-Rex arms punching laterally. That's what Mulaney.
And that's how I punch in real life. So don't mess with me.
No, don't ever get in a fight, please. I'm begging you. Yeah, no, you're right. And he's self-deprecating, but not in an annoying kind of way. It's like a lot of comedians are self-deprecating. Like, all right, it kind of comes off as fake. Like, you're making fun of yourself, but do you really believe it? I think Mulaney, I believe it, especially with Baby J. You'd mentioned Baby J, his most recent special. When he was talking about his intervention, I think that was so great. It was self-deprecating, but it was like honest, and he was almost making fun of other people, but then it would go back to him, and it was, I think Baby J was we've seen it throughout his comedy. Kid Gorgeous is one of my favorite stand-up specials of all time.
Yes.
That's from like 2018, around the time maybe that you get. Maybe
that was the first one
special.
I watched.
Yeah, okay, maybe, Kid Gorgeous was the special.
Yep.
And I think that's one of my favorite all-time stand-up specials by anybody. And you could just see his voice in that. Just, it shines through. And I think you could see on SNL, that comedic voice of Mulaney's show up on his work on SNL. I mean, would you say that that's correct? Like he has a stamp on his sketches. That's Mulaney.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say in preparation for this, I've come to realize a lot of my favorite stuff on SNL written by Mulaney.
Yeah.
Or stuff that I'm laughing out loud. I'm like, oh, that's really funny. Is tied to Mulaney. But I do want to go back to his stand-up. I just want to shout out a joke he did. It's the McDonald's joke. I think it's from The Comeback Kid. He and his family are on a road trip, and they see the Golden Arches, and they start chanting, McDonald's, McDonald's, McDonald's.
And my dad pulled into the drive-thru, and we started cheering. And then he ordered one black coffee for himself. And kept driving. And you know, as mad as that made me as a little kid, in retrospect, that is the funniest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. How perfect is that? He had a van load of little kids, and he got black coffee, the one thing from McDonald's no child could enjoy.
Yeah, and now in my family, my parents watch that with me. Every time we see a McDonald's, even though we don't necessarily go to eat from McDonald's anymore, we chant McDonald's, McDonald's. So
yeah, it's something like that. No, that's perfect. It's something like that that's so specific that you know happened to him or whatever, but it's so relatable at the same time. Like you understand that family dynamic that he's talking about. There was something from Kid Gorgeous, one of my favorite bits. is when he was comparing Trump to a horse loose in a hospital.
This guy being the president, it's like there's a horse loose in a hospital. It's like there's a horse loose in a hospital. I think eventually everything's gonna be okay, but I have no idea what's gonna happen next. And neither do any of you, and neither do your parents, because there's a horse loose in the hospital. It's never happened before. No one knows what the horse is gonna do next, least of all the horse. He's never been in a hospital before. He's as confused as you are.
That's a fantastic imagery, perfect metaphor, perfect beats. Like, I think that's one of the better bits of any comedian I've seen, like, in the last 10 years.
And that's the perfect way to describe him, because last week I watched the Kid Gorgeous again, and I was just like, yeah, no, that holds true.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a perfect way to describe that president.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And it's so Mulaney too. It's such a Mulaney way to describe his presidency as well. That's what I love. Like, most of my favorite comedians, he just like hyper specific voice. We did another writer, Julio Torres, recently on the SNL Hall of Fame, and he's another one where it's just like I would watch a sketch and that's Julio Torres' voice. I watched something from Mulaney and that's Mulaney's perspective and his voice.
Yes.
So I think that's just a mark of a really great writer is nothing generic. It's your stamp on it.
For sure.
And I'm glad I have you on here today. I want to take advantage of like your training and your knowledge and everything, just for sketch writing in general. Victoria, like, as a viewer of sketch comedy and somebody who takes part in sketch comedy, who works in it, what are some things you look for in good sketch writing?
Ooh, man. Obviously it's subjective and everyone's different. I love callbacks to something. So if you're watching a full show, this mostly pertains to stage or theater comedy versus, an SNL type show. But when they do something in an earlier sketch and then they call it back, that's called a runner. There are all these ties. I really love that because it's a smart way to put the show together and create somewhat of a theme. In terms of sketch, I just love when there's a character with a purpose, right? And there's a character who the other characters in the sketch complement them. And this is something we were talking about before we went live here. Of everyone in that sketch serves a purpose, and it's not just they're just there to fill space and let this main character be weird. Mm-hmm. We talked about Herb Welch. We know her, like, this is about Herb Welch, but every character, from the anchor at the studio to the people he's interviewing, they all compliment him and they serve a purpose to show something, a characteristic about that person, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm describing that accurately.
Yeah, no, it's almost where even if a character on screen's nonsensical, it has to be grounded in something.
Correct. That's what I want to say, grounded.
Yeah, it has to be grounded in something. And the people that you mentioned, like the supporting characters, serve as the characters who maybe ground whatever's happening, either to highlight the absurdity or whatever. But you're right. Like, good sketch writing, I think, is just, nothing should be like throwaway.
Yeah.
And I think was that something like that what we're getting at too, is just, like you said, the grounding aspect, but also like no, like an economy of words in a way. Like, you have to use the 3 minutes that you have, like, wisely and efficiently.
Yes. And I like when things are succinct and to the point versus drawn out and we don't get it. Or I like what you said about throwaway. A lot of times, I should say, sketches don't need those extra lines that you think they need, right, to justify. A character doesn't have to say, "Hi, Mom and Dad." We should be able to know that just based on, we need to start in the middle of that. Or of like, "Well, thanks for coming to my wine and cheese night. We're going to do XYZ. It's just start in the middle of the scene. We get, like, we see the wine, we see the cheese, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be about the wine and cheese. Right. And that's, just a random situation, just an example. I don't know. And my favorite thing about Mulaney is that He's kind of bold, too. I don't think a lot of people would be making the same jokes that he was making. That's also to say I don't think he would make the same jokes as he did 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago either. Times have changed, but, you know, I think he did a good job of, I don't know, I like sometimes fearless comedy. And I'm not saying that as an excuse to be a jerk, right?
Right.
You should never, yeah, there's a difference. You should never be a jerk and, you know, make cheap shots and, you know, make marginalized people the butt of the joke. That's not what I'm saying at all. But, you know, don't be so afraid to talk about the things that are just real life and are real to those groups, or, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think we saw a lot of that show up, of course. And the thing that sticks out to me and you, and probably every SNL fan with Mulaney, is a lot of those things that you just mentioned showed up in Stefan, which Mulaney wrote with Bill Hader. And that was the best thing, I think, that almost pretty much anybody has ever done on SNL. This is one of my personal favorite things ever on SNL.
Yeah.
And I think with Stefan, Mulaney's very good at what you just mentioned. Victoria's showing on her notebook she has a Stefan sticker. So obviously a fan of Stefan. But I think Mulaney's good at referencing things that seem very specific but are oddly relatable in Stefan. He's very good about not punching down at marginalized people, but still making jokes involving marginalized people in a lot of ways. So talk about Victoria, like talk about Stefan just in general. Like, what do you want to say about this awesome piece of art?
And something I failed to mention, again, I did not do a good job of explaining why I find in a sketch, but specificity. Is that a word?
That's very much a word, and you did a good job. There you go.
Thank you. English is my second language, as I like to joke. No, but he has specifics that make it incredibly weird in Stefan, right? You know, I don't know that I can describe some of the things, you know, Stefan would say. Again, I don't think we'd be making the same jokes today, which is fair and fine and understandable. But, you know, I don't want to say the word, but he was talking about real life suitcases where they wear where they wear
people, but he used the M word.
Yes,
right.
And like I think it was like layering clothes on and putting on rollerblades, and you know what I mean. Just like how stupid, you know. That's just like a stupid, funny joke.
Yeah, that imagery.
The imagery of it is fun. And I love the game between Stefan and Seth of like, no, we're looking for suggestions for, you know, a Midwestern family or anybody who's not you.
I got it already.
Okay.
New York's hottest club is Push. This club has everything. Ghosts, banjos, Carl Palladino, a stuck-up kitten who won't sign autographs, Furkles.
Oh, do I want to know?
Yes, you do.
So Furkles are?
Fat Urkels.
Right. Of course they are. Sure they are.
And after you've been with one of those guys, you'll ask yourself, did I do that?
Stefan?
Just these like weird, random, yet very specific things that don't necessarily fit together that are under the same roof at whatever club is. It was just, it was a nice blend of weird but specific, and, you know, I think it worked for Stefan.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. One of my favorite jokes that he did is Stefan.
Plus, there's a special guest. Have you heard of Blackula, the Black Dracula?
Yes.
Well, they have a Jewish Dracula.
Oh, what's his name?
Sidney Applebaum.
Okay. Sidney Applebaum? Jewish Dracula. Sidney.
It's that like misdirection, that funny misdirection. I could totally tell Mulaney was sitting there like, I gotta like do sort of like a funny misdirection joke. So you think he's obviously gonna do a play, like Blackula is a play on Black Dracula. He says Jewish Dracula, there's gonna be a play on that, but it's just a Jewish name. And that's totally Mulaney's sense of humor. and I appreciate that. And also the game of I don't know if you and I have ever talked about breaking before in sketches. First of all, okay, so how do you feel just in general, like, about breaking?
I think there's a time and place. You know, if you're just breaking right off the bat, it's not funny. Mm-hmm. If you're doing it excessively, it's not funny. It just depends. And maybe, like, for example, Debbie Downer, what worked for that sketch was that everyone was breaking constantly. But that was like a joint, yeah, this is funny and ridiculous. And we're, you know, the fact they couldn't get through it was funny to us. But if it's a single person who's just breaking and it doesn't seem genuine, it kind of ruined. Yeah.
Yeah. I think with Stefan, it did seem genuine. We kind of started as the audience, we started kind of knowing the game that Mulaney was playing with Bill Hader in there. Yes. So Mulaney would change the cue cards. Like, he would change the punchlines to some of the jokes. Mm-hmm. And so when Bill was, as Stefan, was reading the joke, that could have been the first time that he was reading that specific punchline, even though they did it in Dress. Yes. I think between Dress and Air, Mulaney would have punchlines, like multiple versions of a punchline of a joke. So he would just switch out punchlines between Dress and Air. So that'd be the first time that we saw Bill reading that joke. So I think in breaking in that case, it's funny. No, there's like a funny game. It's part of this bit or whatever. And it's something that with Debbie Downer, I think the first time they did it was natural, and that's why it was a classic. And then they tried to recreate it, and it wasn't the same. And they found the magic with Stefan being able to recreate the game of breaking. And I don't know how they did it. They weren't able to recreate it in Debbie Downer. Lisa from Temecula recently, I don't think they've been able to recreate that. But with Stefan, Mulaney and Hader managed to recreate breaking and make it seem authentic every time. Like, I wonder why that is, Victoria. What's the difference?
Well, it's probably because every single thing Stefan says is he's a firecracker. You don't know what he's going to say, and he doesn't know what he's going to say. And I think why that's getting a laugh is that those folks in studio are also seeing that. Okay. They're seeing the switch or whatever. But I think it works for them because the nature of Stefan is so out there and wild and weird that he's not a relatable character. He's not saying the run-of-the-mill things of, oh, my favorite breakfast is pancakes with bacon. He's saying some very weird things. And to say them in person out loud in front of an audience is kind of, you know, like, what am I saying? I do that too sometimes.
His favorite breakfast would be like uppers and regret or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. And I've gotten my breaking under control, but I've broken on stage.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's just funny because and to me, what's making it funny is we've been rehearsing this and we've got the joke and, you know, we've whatever, but now we're sharing this with other people who are not comedians. And we don't know how they're going to react, but we know it's ridiculous, and I'm going to say it and hope for the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Part of the breaking is that we're now saying this in front of people who we don't know. Yes. We don't know what they're going to say, how they're going to react to it, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really neat perspective on breaking, I guess, from a performer's side of it. I think, just as long as it doesn't feel forced or...
Yes. I think that's what you're better at words today than I am, but that's what I meant of when you're solo or you start breaking off the bat or whatever it is, if it just doesn't seem genuine, if you're not actually laughing, you're just doing it to deflect or try to make this funny or trying to be funny by breaking, I don't think it works. I think people will notice that, and if you're genuinely breaking, people will laugh with you and not at you.
Yeah, essentially Mulaney's a magician when it comes to this because he was able to make it seem authentic and part of the game and everything like that with Stefan. So Stefan, by the way, on the Saturday Night Network's Character Countdown, I believe he was number 1. I was on that episode.
Wow.
He was number 1. Do you agree with Stefan? Like, could you see him being number 1 in a Character Countdown? It's 49 years of history, I know, but what do you think of that?
I'm trying to think of, well, okay, hold on. I was going to say, who else would be number one? But I really love some of Kristen Wiig's characters too. But Stefan being number one is a fair assessment.
That kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
There were no diminishing returns too. So that I think that's another thing about good sketch writing is if you keep writing the same character, and how are the returns on it? With Stefan, I don't think, Victoria, there was diminishing returns on Stefan. It might have gotten better, honestly. So that as a sketch writer and somebody who appreciates sketch, like that's such sometimes a rare thing not to see diminishing returns for a recurrent character.
No, that's completely accurate. It's a fair assessment. I was like, unless you're doing a specific show about those same characters, but I think that's one thing that Stefan got the same amount of laughs, if not even more laughs, every time he showed up.
Yeah, and that's just great writing and great performance by Bill, of course. Bill Hader, amazing performer. But that was just like the team, like Mulaney and Bill, just such a wonderful team.
For sure.
So Stefan, we love Victoria has a Stefan sticker on her notebook. So we all love Stefan. Something that I've always loved, very relatable thing of forgetting people's names. So it's presented in a fun way by Mulaney. So Mulaney's behind the What's That Name sketches. So Victoria, these get me every time. I think he did 3 of them, but all 3 were just fantastic. You know, like a relatable premise. I love these. Like, what'd you think of What's That Name?
It's interesting. So I have a very millennial / Gen Z take on this. So there are people that will, follow me and I follow them back on Instagram, and we have our names on Instagram, that I won't know their real name, but I know their Instagram name.
Oh no.
And for example, this literally happened last night, where there's this person I've met them in person and we follow each other on Instagram, but I forgot their real name. I only knew their...
Did you forget my name?
Tim. No, his name is Thomas, everybody. His name's Thomas. It says it in the top left corner here. No, but there was a person that I ran into and I forgot his real name, and I was about to call him his Instagram handle. But I think it's just, again, it's a very funny premise. I think that's a great take on how to present this versus doing a real life, like, relationship sketch, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, I love that they put it in game format and not just, hey, we're at a hot dog stand and I don't know your name and what kind of game can we play within the sketch. I love that the format of it is a game show.
Yeah. I think game show sketches get a bad rap. Like, people say, oh, another game show sketch. But I think that it's format. Like, the format of a game show is ripe to present jokes, to present situations. I think it just gets a bad rap. But to me, it being a game show sketch in and of itself, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just about execution. Just like with any of this stuff, it's about the execution. I agree with you that it was a good idea to make this a game show. And of course, Bill Hader, like, arguably one of the best game show hosts in SNL history. You can make him a game show host with anything, knock it out of the park.
I know your whole family. Your son Avi loves outer space. What's my name?
Carl? Audience, what's that name?
Norman the doorman.
Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. Say hi to the wife for me.
I'm sorry, what's that? Say hi to my wife? Yeah, okay, I'll take the bus out to Forest Hill Cemetery and tell her that you say hello.
God, what the hell kind of show is this?
It's What's That Name?
The interactions between Hader and the contestants, he was like, Bill Hader was antagonistic. He's like the sadistic game show host who's like, I know you forget names and I'm doing this on purpose to put you in this position. So, the first one they did was season 36, episode 9. It was Mulaney. He co-wrote these with Simon Rich, who he collaborated with a lot, and Marika Sawyer. So there's like his writing partners a lot of the time on the show, and he collaborated with them on What's That Name. It was like Paul Rudd, Vanessa Bayer. Kenan comes out as the doorman, and Paul Rudd's trying to remember the name. It's Norman the Doorman. Like, how easy is it to remember that name? So these are just like lovely, lovely sketches. He did it too when he came back to host as well.
Yeah, I thought that was very funny. Kenan was like, I know your son, and he loves outer space. What's my name? And yeah, it was very, very funny. I love that one and the one with Mulaney and Cecily, that the women were, executives and they were high ranking in their in their workplaces. So shout out to that, and not just making them stay at home moms or whatever it is.
Mulaney and Simon Rich and America Sawyer lifting up women.
Yes.
In the What's That Name sketch. Bonus points.
Yes. Yeah.
For the SNL Hall of Fame, if you lift up women.
Yeah. You have to. In this economy, you have to.
In this economy, that's just, bonus points for the SNL Hall of Fame candidacy. So What's That Name? I know, just a fan favorite that Mulaney was behind, along with America Sawyer and Simon Rich. Something that's very Mulaney specific to me. It's a funny observation about Lifetime movies. And Mulaney's done this in his stand-up, not specifically about Lifetime movies, but he's talked about like Law and Order, and made funny observations about that. Recently at the Academy Awards, he had a whole thing about Field of Dreams. That was great.
Shout out Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
What a good movie. What a good movie.
It's a little absurd, though, in a lot of ways, that Mulaney...
I mean... Yeah, he did that for... what's funny is that Field of Dreams and The Fugitive, which he described... Yes. Oh, I forgot what stand-up special it was. Like, two movies my family loved watching together growing up, and he described them so ridiculous. It was funny. Ridiculous but accurate, but it was very funny. Yeah, in a loving way. He's so good about taking just grinding at the heart of what makes something its essence, the essence of what makes something silly and ridiculous, and really highlighting that stuff. So he did a sketch in season 37. He wrote a sketch called What's Wrong with Tanya.
Okay, let's go over the rules. A Lifetime movie, Tanya will walk out, and you'll have 15 seconds to guess what's wrong with her.
There's nothing wrong with her.
Yes? Yes, there is. All right, let's bring out our first Tanya. All right, mothers, what is wrong with Tanya?
Tanya, oh my God, Tanya. Look at me, show my face, Tanya. Tanya, my Tanya. Look at Tanya. Me.
Mary Jo Beth Jojo.
Tanya, you've been going to those parties where girls do oral sex for bracelets.
That's right. That's right.
Of course, Bill Hader, again, playing a villainous kind of host. It was a very specific observation about Lifetime movies, Victoria. And I don't know if you've watched a lot of Lifetime movies, but this was painfully accurate.
I was going to ask you if you've watched any. And if you go back to this, they have the old logo, which is just incredible. Like, that logo brought up a lot of memories from being a young girl watching Lifetime.
I feel like I was home growing up, like being homesick, and when The Price is Right was done, I'd be flipping channels and maybe something ridiculous on Lifetime would be on, and it would kind of suck me in for like 15 to 20 minutes. But I know the beats. So I know that, like, the beats of those movies, I know that what was portrayed in the What's Wrong with Tanya sketch is, like, completely accurate. He got the archetypes just right.
Yes. Yeah, I love the contestants all being the same thing.
Yeah. Just like what, the nosy neighbor kind of.
Yeah, and they all kind of look like Martha Stewart.
You're right.
They were just it was the same person in different font. Like, each contestant, they were all blonde, they were all wearing the same shades of pink and cream, same personality. It was, and I'm like, those are the people watching Lifetime, and maybe even some of the characters in Lifetime movies.
You're right. He's also is poking fun at the viewers of these movies as well. I can definitely see that. My favorite part is when Andy Samberg comes out.
But it can happen to a boy.
So you thought. All right, mothers, what's wrong with boy Tanya?
Tanya, no.
Tanya.
Boy, Tanya.
Boy, Tanya.
What's wrong? Boy, Tanya.
Tanya.
Tanya. Boy, Tanya.
Tanya. Mother. Boy, Tanya.
Boy, Tanya, look at...
Major William.
Tanya, you're a secret stripper.
No.
Tanya, you're pregnant.
What? No, come on.
Tanya, your English teacher caught you cheating, so he made you take naked pictures, and now they're online, and it's given you an eating disorder, and also you can't read.
All right, Mary Jo, that's JoJo.
I don't know. Calling him Boy Tanya is just such like a Mulaney, like chef's kiss kind of touch to me.
And guessing that he's pregnant, like
yeah. And then Bill Hader's like, "What? No." And then they just gotta move on.
Yeah. And it, like said, what was it? What was ended up happening with him? Something about seeing something that left him with an eating disorder or something.
Yeah, he had an eating disorder and something. Yeah, we'll go play back, but
I'll go play back for sure.
Yeah, but that was just such great beats in this. The winning contestant does the lightning round while the other two contestants watch while pretending to rake leaves. That's like such a specific observation that he threw into this. It's so perfect. It's so, I'm gonna say this a lot, it's so Mulaney, this whole thing.
I love at the end, he grabs her, she's like, "You're hurting me. Who's gonna believe you?
Yeah.
You're not going anywhere. You'll never leave me." And those are classic Lifetime movie lines.
Yeah. Mulaney, again, so good about mining for the specificity in something and really highlighting it and the absurdity that comes with it. That's why I love Mulaney. Truth be told, he's my favorite working comedian right now, like stand-up wise, because of these little things, because of the way he structures things and observes things and presents things. So Mulaney is my favorite stand-up comedian right now. He has the championship belt for me.
Wow.
I don't know if that's controversial.
That's a big claim.
It's a big claim. I know. I stand by it.
You stand up by it?
No. Oh, jeez. Something else that I stand by. This happened actually when he was hosting, but it was such a Mulaney thing. One of my favorite sketches of the past few years, and I don't know, I haven't really talked to a ton of people about this one. I think you said you watched it. It's the Monkey Judge one.
Yes.
From season 47. I think that this is like, to me, this almost structurally is like a perfect sketch.
Your Honor, it is obvious that you're favoring the defense.
That is ridiculous.
Your Honor, I love Judge.
I love you.
I love Judge.
You are baby. Judge, love baby. Bring Judge, baby. Judge, love you. Judge, favor defense.
Okay, come on! Yeah, we move to request a new judge.
Are you suggesting that I'm not competent? Tango made these pieces match. Sure, it was a bit of trial and error, but I did it. I won the juice.
You don't have to think it's like a perfect sketch, but what were your impressions of it?
Well, one, I want someone to love me as much as you love John Mulaney.
I know.
My goodness.
Don't know.
No, that was a very funny sketch. And I think, again, something we've been saying and will continue to say about John Mulaney it's his attention to detail and picking up on everyday things and those little details of the everyday things and bringing them up and presenting them to us, right? Oh yeah, a lot of it's like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. As a lot of what I think when I watch and listen to his stuff. It's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what they do. Talking about how, in this sketch, oh, he's smiling. No, he's just like showing his teeth to assert dominance.
Yeah.
Like those specific details or, blue shape, blah, blah, blah. Just pointing out those specific things is what works for him. And it's very smart, right?
Yeah.
He's able to describe those things that I wouldn't be able to describe.
Yeah.
A lot of people wouldn't. And he has a great way of, again, pulling the very minute and blowing it up to make it funny. And I think that's what worked in this sketch. And it was about monkeys, right? We all have seen monkeys. But
Exactly.
he was able to personify that monkey, and also, put in front of us how monkeys act and what that would look like in a courtroom, essentially.
Yeah, it's almost like when I was done watching the sketch, I had just finished watching like a documentary on monkeys because I felt like I learned so much. But it was also very funny, just funny, acute observations. Like when Melissa Villaseñor, she played the character that got injured by somebody's pet monkey, and she was talking about, they asked her the question, like, what kind of hat were you wearing? And she's like, I usually wear a bucket hat, but I was wearing a different hat. And then as the monkey judge, he's like, so let me get this straight. You approach this person as a completely different shape, and you approach this monkey as a completely different shape, and you expected him to be cool about that? Like,
yeah.
Like,
That's so funny. So was this a new hat? Well, I usually wear an orange bucket hat, but I was wearing a green baseball cap.
Yeah, and
which is,
you thought the monkey would just be cool with this. You were completely different shape. Yeah, or
that's fair.
He gets mad at Kenan. He's like, "I will now throw sand at you to show dominance," and he like tossed sand at him like this.
Yes.
Yeah, it was just so, again, very Mulaney to have like the behavioral traits of a monkey, but present them as very human in a courtroom setting. I don't know. I was like blown away by this sketch when I saw it. I thought it was so smart, and I thought the structure was great. Shout out Simon Rich and Please Don't Destroy, who also were helped with this. But this was a recent sketch. It was from season 40. It was 2 seasons ago, season 47.
Yeah.
And I was just like really honestly blown away by like the writing of this sketch. So what else would you like to bring up, Victoria? I expressed my love for Monkey Judge, so I think I've like kind of
the
I'll
cake.
tap out on that and spare everybody my complete, like, maybe we'll do a bonus an hour and a half episode of me just breaking down Monkey Judge. But is there anything else from Mulaney that you want to bring up?
I feel like we're gonna have to bring up one of the musicals, either Diner Lobster or Bodega Bathroom.
Yes.
I think that's kind of essential.
Mm-hmm. Which one? Okay, which one's your favorite out of the musicals? And we'll talk about that one.
Bodega Bathroom.
Okay.
Hey, man, do you have a bathroom?
A what?
A bathroom, like a bathroom I could use?
Dude, did you just ask to use a bathroom in a bodega?
I mean, what? Who cares? It's an emergency.
Would you like the key to the bathroom?
Charlie, if you do this, I don't think we can be friends anymore, man.
Dude, relax. It's just a bathroom. I'm sure it's fine.
It's a cinder block, bro.
And so it shall be. Oh, Bodega Cat, show this man to the bathroom.
I never watched Les Mis, so I never
Me either.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not really. We had to kind of read it, I think, in high school. Was it Les Mis? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't really remember it. But I felt like I remembered it. Like, it still felt familiar, them doing Les Mis in this sketch.
I'm going to tell you how uncultured I am right now, Thomas. I don't even really know what Les Mis is about. Something about French war. A French something happened.
Well,
but
you don't have to sell me on you being uncultured, Victoria. I already know, so it's fine.
Thomas, I like your humor because it's nonchalant and you don't need to try hard. Like, you just slip it in and it's part of your everyday, like, speech. And
I don't know if you've intended it this way, but I'm taking that as a compliment.
it is a compliment.
Okay. Thank you, Victoria.
Because you don't shift your tone. You just say it as you would anything else. And so
That's the Mulaney you think about me. I don't know.
Yeah, I just have to think twice. I'm like, did he? No, this is a joke. Yeah, okay. which makes it funnier. No, we can talk about Bodega Bathroom.
Yeah. So remind us what the beats of Bodega Bathroom.
So one, I want to shout out that I don't see Pete Davidson as a musical type guy. Like, I can't see him, watching Anything Goes, Kinky Boots, Wicked. I can't see him watching those things, but I don't know him. I don't know him personally. I've only met him once for a solid second and a half on his 21st birthday, I should tell you. And that his 21st birthday was 9 years ago. So I do not know Pete Davidson. I just know what the media has told me. And they're not telling me much here. Nonetheless, I love that he's the center at both of these pieces, the diner lobster and bodega bathroom. It's just a weird fit. But essentially, Pete Davidson asks bodega owner to use the bathroom, which then sets off a musical chain of events, revealing a secret.
As all these musical sketches do, he did 5 in a row. From seasons 43 to 47, he hosted 5 times, and this was like a staple of these episodes. So yeah, Bodega Bathroom, Colin Jost, and Gary Richardson worked closely.
Oh, that was a Colin Jost?
Yeah, Colin. Well,
oh, wow.
One of the stories about these musicals is that Mulaney and Jost, when they were both on the writing staff, they tried to get Diner Lobster on in 2010 or something, like a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And they could just never get it on for whatever reason. I think Mulaney maybe said that it didn't play well at the pitch meeting or whatever, so it never got past that level. But when Mulaney hosted, he and Jost were like, yeah, we got to get this on. Let's try to get Diner Lobster. Let's do it. So that's like the genesis of these musical sketches was them trying to get Diner Lobster on when they were writers, and it didn't happen. So yeah, so Jost is definitely like huge part of these as well.
I was gonna say I did not know that.
Yeah,
that's
Colin
a good.
Will surprise you. He's not. He's not just a pretty punchable face.
Oh. Yeah, well, he dubbed himself that, so
he did. It's his words, not mine.
That's on him. Yeah. No, I didn't know that was. I just thought John Mulaney loved musicals.
I think he does. I think he has the spirit of a theater kid. Does that make sense?
Yes. Like he's
very, even in his stand-up, he speaks to the back of the audience. He's very dramatic in his presentation, and it's very theatrical.
Yes.
So this doesn't surprise me that he would want to do theater, musical-based sketches.
I'm not a huge musical girly myself. Like, I love some musicals. I did musicals in high school, or was at least part of them. But I do try to put musicals on stage. I try to do musical style stuff. I don't know. We'll talk about that later at another day. But yeah.
Yeah, harnessing your John Mulaney energy with that.
I'm consistently harnessing my John Mulaney energy.
That's good energy to be harnessed. This is just like a celebration. This is a loose kind of episode, I suppose, because it fits John Mulaney. It's very just a very celebratory. I feel when I went and did research, and not research, when I rewatch stuff for this, it just put me in a good mood. It put me in like a great headspace because just Mulaney has that ability. He has that touch, and that's why we've gone through Herb Welch, Stefan, What's That Name, some of the one-off stuff like Monkey Judge, the great Monkey Judge, What's Wrong with Tanya. Mention his musicals. Like, that's quite the Hall of Fame resume, wouldn't you say, Victoria? Like, if you were a writer on SNL, would you not be proud to have all of that on your resume?
Absolutely. I think there's also a component here in that this boy got range. Like, it's a variety of stuff. Stefan is a standalone character that they've put him in a sketch or two, but then he was a stand-up, a recurring character, game shows, musicals, and then of course your average sketches that you're putting on here on the show. I think it speaks to the variety that he brings, even though it's a Mulaney style sketch and you can tell when he's had a part in it, he still brings a few different things to the table. And I think that's really impressive, and qualifies him for the Hall of Fame. And not only that, people love John Mulaney, even if they're not watching SNL, they're watching his stand-up, or they know about him, or they know that he's had an impact on SNL through his writing, and they can tell you, anyone can tell you, hey, John Mulaney did this. They're very aware, too. He's a likable person, and I know he, says likability is a jail, but I think, because just calling it out, he's been through a few things in the last couple of years, and I commend him for getting back up on his feet. And I don't know his journey well enough to judge, and I'm not going to. I would never be able to judge a situation like that, but I think he's done an excellent job of reclaiming himself and his comedy and kind of reintroducing himself to the world as, hey, I'm not this perfect, button-up guy. I do have some flaws, and I think he shows that in Baby J, but even in Baby J, though it was different from his past work, was still funny and still called out those details and the specifics and, the mundane things, and he was able to do it in his own way. And people, I think, just appreciate that about him. And he really is the comeback kid, is what I'll say. And I think his work speaks for itself. Even if you didn't know his name, you know his sketches. Everyone knows who Stefan is. Stefan is a beloved. I think Stefan, in and of itself, qualifies him for the Hall of Fame.
So there's that. Victoria, Thomas, you really brought it. You left it all out there, and I gotta say, I'm gonna be shocked if Mulaney doesn't make it into the Hall one way or another. He's gonna be on the ballot in 2 categories this time, which is unprecedented here in the Hall. Now, I want to circle back on something Victoria talked about right toward the end when she mentioned Stefan. And we are going to listen to a Stefan sketch now. This is trademark Hader and Mulaney. They play off each other and feed one another so well. And Stefan, like Victoria mentioned, is beloved at this point. He's probably a top 10, maybe even top 5 character. I forget what the SNN came up with when they did characters, but he's got to be right up there. So let me not dilly-dally any further, and let's get to Stefan on Weekend Update.
It's Christmas time in New York, which means millions of tourists will be coming to see what holiday magic the Big Apple has to offer. Here with some tips on where you and your children should go is our city correspondent, Stefan.
Hi.
Hi, Stefan. It's an exciting time, isn't it?
I know, right? So many Republican candidates. Who do you pick?
Okay, so Stefan, a lot of families are making their way to Manhattan to have some holiday fun. Are there any places you can recommend?
Yes. If you're looking to get festive with your family, I've got the perfect place for you. New York's hottest club is Hey! Built from the bucket list of a dying pervert, this Battery Park bitch parade is now managed by overweight game show host Fat Sajak. And this place has everything. Tweakers, skeevies, Spud Webb, a child, and a Russian guy who runs on the treadmill in a Cosby sweater. So come on down this weekend. The bouncer is a bulldog who looks like Wilford Brimley, and the password is diabetes.
Stefan, that sounds like a very cool place, and
Right.
I'm sure that people exist who would enjoy hanging out at a place like that. But since New York has so many holiday sights to see, maybe you can think of something more traditional for ordinary salt of the earth people to check out.
Yes, loud and clear. If you're ordinary or love salt, I've got just the spot for you. New York's hottest holiday club is...
Could you use that in a sentence for me?
In a sentence?
Yeah.
Let's go to... Because the line is too long at spicy.
Okay, that was a sentence, thank you.
Opened and condemned in 1904, The seasonal psych award is a creation of Hanukkah cartoon character Menorah the Explorer. And this place has everything. Kiwis, spud web.
Spud web, he's doing double duty.
Yeah. Clio Awards, some guy's mom. Plus a special showing of the African holiday classic, A Fish Called Kwanzaa. Look who just walked in. It's a lady who works at CVS, but do not bother her because she is on break.
I don't know if this place captures the holiday spirit.
But all the proceeds go to charity.
Oh, which charity?
Flaccid Outreach Group, Doctors Without Boners.
Stefan, I would never disparage a charity, and I'm sure that Doctors Without Boners does amazing work.
Not really.
No, not really, okay. But this is not what I was looking for.
I'm trying my best.
All right. You're right. I shouldn't get mad at you. I just get emotional around the holidays, Stefan. You know, my family is all back in New Hampshire, and I don't get to spend the holidays with them anymore. I guess I just miss them this time of year.
I'm sorry, I never knew you had a family. I just thought you were built by gay scientists. You know what? This year I'm gonna get you a Christmas present.
Oh, Stefan, wow, what are you gonna get me?
A human boombox.
What's a human boombox?
It's that thing of when you carry a over your shoulder while he sings gangster rap.
That's just what I've always wanted.
Happy holidays, Seth Meyers.
Stefan, everybody! We got up there. Good night.
I forgot how much I love Bill Hader working with Mulaney. Stefan is a masterwork in sketch comedy and the games that they play with one another. So there's that. Victoria Franco, I want to thank you so much for joining us this week. It's been an absolute pleasure. On behalf of Thomas and Matt, we thank you so much for making the case for Mulaney as a writer in the SNL Hall of Fame. Next week on the SNL Hall of Fame podcast, we will be joined by Rebecca North to discuss Maya Rudolph as she takes one last kick at the old nomination can. That's right, this is her last year to be considered for the SNL Hall of Fame, or she will be removed from the ballot, whether she likes it or not. So, that's what I've got for you this week. I hope you are doing well. We really appreciate you stopping by. But if you do me a favor on the way out, as you pass the Weekend Update exhibit, turn out the lights, because the SNL Hall of Fame is now closed.
Thanks for listening to the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. Make sure to rate, review, share, and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media at SNLHOF. This is Doug Denant saying, see you next week.
To podcasts and such.